Hello and welcome to the first ever knitting podcast of Spruce Grove Knits. My name is Emma. I live in Ontario, Canada with my cat Callie, who you might see sometimes pop in and out of the video. If you see me looking over here at all, I have my phone, I'm recording on my phone and I have it screen recording on my laptop just so that I can see how it looks. Hopefully the sun stays out for all of this. It's about 4 p.m. right now, 4:30. So hopefully we get enough sunlight to get through all of this. But basically I've been knitting for about a year now. I looked back on my knitting Instagram, which is at Spruce Grove Knits. And it looks like I knit my first pair of socks, which was what I consider like my first proper knitting project, in mid-February 2021. So it's been about a year that I've been knitting, and I've been a big follower of the knitting podcast community. I watch them while I knit. I watch often while I work during the day to have something on in the background, and I've been wanting to be a part of it because I could talk for ages in general in life, but especially about knitting, and I think my family and friends only want to hear so much. So I will talk to the knitting community about it. And I'm a bit of a detail-oriented perfectionist person. So I've been putting this off and putting this off because I didn't know what exactly I wanted to talk about or how I wanted to organize it or lay out the podcast. But I think I'm just going to jump right in and go for it. I thought that I would cover for my first episode everything I knit in my first year of knitting. So because we're a little bit past the 1 year mark now, but basically everything I've knit from when I started knitting in early 2021 until now. As is my personality with hobbies, I jumped in with full force into knitting. I was watching a ton of knitting podcasts right off the bat. So this would have been like late 2020, early 2021. I was researching yarns. I was learning tons and tons about different knitting notions and supplies and different types of yarn and different weights of yarn, and I was down the rabbit hole. So I guess actually technically before I started knitting socks, which I would count as like my first knitting project, I made a couple of these twisted headbands. I think the pattern, I will link all of my patterns and makers, dyers, all of that below, or at least list them out if I can't link them. I knit a bunch of these, which are twisted headbands. I think the designer is Real Ruth. I might be saying that wrong. I think it's a German design company. They're super simple. They're just knit in the round. They are like double layers. So they're just knit in the round, and then so they're knit flat. You like sew the ends of, like, you knit a long tube, you sew the ends together, and then you sew it together in this like twisted way. So I knit a bunch of those. I made 3, I think, and they are all in Lion brand wool ease. So they were good for getting used to knitting again. Knit stitches. I think at this point I was still knitting English style. I am a continental knitter now, exclusively. But I learned English as a kid, and that's what I was knitting at this point. So knit a bunch of these, and that was good to get my feet in the water, and they are warm, and they worked out well. They were good for learning tension. Yeah, I do have all my knits here in order of what I think is order of what I knit when. So we'll go through that to start off. The next thing, so the first pair of socks I knit were these. They are a basic vanilla sock It's like a pink with some speckling throughout and this dark green for toes, heels, and cuffs. So they were my very first sock. The pattern is the Summerly Knits basic sock pattern. I'm blanking on what the name of the pattern is, but I will link it down below. So it's a basic vanilla sock, and the yarn I used for these, I did write it down. So I knit these in, it's 2 Canadian Dyers. So the main color is called Pretty Little Thing by True North Creative, and the contrast color here was Brine Dye Works in the color Nori. And I think I ordered those online from Rose and Pearl at the time. She's a Canadian yarn shop distributor that's based online. So I started with that. So I guess the next one is these here. So these were my neck socks. These ones actually don't fit me great, so I don't wear them a ton anymore, unfortunately. But again, they were, I think, the same basic sock pattern. I was still getting used to knitting socks. I knit all of my socks on magic loop, by the way, with the exception of one pair that I will show shortly. So I knit these. I did try a Latvian braid on these ones, which is, I think, unfortunately, what makes them not fit. They're just really tight around the top of the cuff, so that was unfortunate. But these were knit in another Canadian dyer, an Ontario-based dyer, Lizzie and Yarn. This is in their sock base, and it is an Anne of Green Gables Monthly Club colorway. I think this was the February 2021 colorway. They're gorgeous. I love Anne of Green Gables. Unfortunately, the socks just don't fit me super well, so that's unfortunate. But I do love them, and they have a special place in my heart for being one of the first pairs of socks that I knit. So I think next was around March 2020. These are the ones I did not knit magic loop. So these are another basic sock pattern, vanilla socks that I knit on DPNs. I wanted to give DPNs a go, so I knit these. You can kind of see the color. It's a self-striping it's Croy socks. So you can just get it at your local craft store. They have a bunch of self-striping yarns. I don't love the Croy socks yarn because I find that for fingering weight, it's very thick. It's also very rustic feeling, especially given that it is a superwash yarn from what I remember. And it feels very, very rustic for what it is. So, but it's fine. I actually knit these for my younger sister, and it's been a year, and I still haven't given them to her. She lives in Quebec, so I should probably mail them to her or something. But they've been sitting around for a year. They're too big for me. She's taller than me. She has bigger feet, so need to send those off to her. But those were the third pair of socks that I knit. So next was when I first started getting into other patterns. I think at this point I started following more makers on Instagram. I started watching a wider range of knitting podcasts. And I think at this time I started watching Stress Knits podcast by Stacy Elstone, I think. So she's based in Michigan. She's lovely. She dyes for Stress Knits yarn, which I will show some of later on. But I was watching one of her podcasts around, I think, March of 2021. And she was making the infamous Pearl Soho half and half triangles wrap. And I fell in love with it. I was like, I could knit that. At this point, I had watched enough stuff on short rows where I was like, I'm ready to give short rows a go. I could totally knit that. So I placed a Pearl Soho order. At this point in my knitting, I was never knitting with yarns other than recommended yarns for patterns because I just didn't know enough. I still don't know enough really to knit, to like substitute yarns. I always feel nervous substituting yarns, even if they meet gauge, just at like the shape or the drape. It's all gonna be off is my fear. So I paid the exchange rate for Canada US dollars, and I ordered some Pearl Soho linen quill at this time. So think about March last year, it took like a month to come in, and I immediately cast on for my first half and half triangles wrap. So this was my first massive project outside of socks, and I knit it. It's huge. So I knit this in Pearl Soho linen quill. In honey pink is this one here. It's gorgeous. I think it's one of the favorite colors I've ever knit with in any project ever. So this is honey pink. And then this color, I don't know what I was thinking when I ordered this. I wear very pastel colors, not even pastels. I just wear like neutrals a lot. I think I was in like a spring mood when I ordered this yarn, because it would have been like March. It was warming up, it was getting nice out. And so I ordered this, which is the color peachy pink. So it is gorgeous. It's just definitely not my color. But this was my first giant project. So I then cast this on, and I did not cast it off. So for anyone who doesn't know this, I think most people in the knitting community know this pattern by now. I think it was Caddy Jack's Knits that first kind of really got the ball rolling on this pattern, but it is a free pattern by Pearl Soho. There's two sizes. I knit the biggest size, which I think is a cast on of 260 stitches. So I cast on along this edge, and then it's short rows, and you do a short row on every single stitch of that color. I did German short rows here. I believe the pattern calls for wrap and turns. I just find wrap and turns a little finicky for me personally. But you cast on here with, it's 260 or 280 stitches. And then you do short rows on every color up until this corner. And then when you get here, you go the other direction basically. So at that point you resolve all of the short rows all the way down the middle, and then you go back up the other side from this corner all the way back up to the top, and you do short rows and resolve them all the way back up as well. And I did do a like faux I-cord kind of edge on it here, so hopefully you can see that. It is, I just slipped the last two stitches basically all the way through the sweater, or all the way through the wrap, just so you get a nice edge there. And so this was my first massive pattern, and because of how long that took, I knit this until November. I cast this on in like mid-November 2021, or cast this off in mid-November 2021, but it's super cozy. I work from home. I wear it, I wrap up in it all the time, sitting at my desk when I'm getting cold in the day. So it is really nice. So it was kind of just my ongoing project throughout the summer and the fall. And yeah, I really love it so much that I have cast on another one, which we will talk about in a bit. The next thing, I'm pretty sure, were these socks here, which are to this day one of my favorite pairs that I've knit. So they are these. So this is from the Hello Sailor sock set by Summerlee Knits. They are the broken rope sock. So it is like, I think it's half fisherman's rib, if I remember correctly, all the way through the body and then up the top of the foot. And I knit these in the yarn called, I think it's pronounced Tineke, from Sunday Fiber Co. She is another Canadian dyer. I think she's based on the West Coast. She has amazing yarns. They're so soft, they're so fluffy. I love the stiff definition that I get with her yarns. I've knit with a few of them now, and they're gorgeous. So I wear these all the time. I think I actually want to knit another pair of socks in this pattern. Yeah, so I think I cast these on in April 2021, and I think I cast them off in like early June. They were kind of just around for a bit. working on those. And then I think for majority of the summer, I was working on the half and half wrap. I was pretty busy in the summer with work stuff, so didn't knit a ton from what I remember, but I did knit a lot on that wrap, and I know that it was in the summer that I cast on this sock that to this day does not have a match. So this was again in Croy socks, which for like the same reasons as before, I just don't love. But this is, it's gonna be hard to see on camera, but this is the Summerly Knits little black socks. So they have this beautiful ribbing up both sides, and then they do have like a texture on the front, which I think is going to be hard for the camera to pick up, but they do have a texture on the front there as well. And then they have an afterthought heel as well. So I think I cast this on in early August while I was on vacation. I wanted these to be like I remember the vacation when I started the socks, which I do, so I guess that worked, but I didn't love, this is the first time I knit cables, and I didn't love knitting cables on a sock like this. I just felt like they were taking me ages. It just wasn't the greatest experience. They're definitely not mindless as a sock, which I do tend to prefer if I'm knitting socks. I just kind of want to be able to fly through it, and I couldn't. And the textured pattern on the front, I would mess up all the time, and I was constantly knitting back and fixing where the purls were in the texture. So I have cast on the second sock for this. I do have it as a whip. I will show it when I get to whips, because I am going to talk about those later. But for now, it is a lone sock that is not in use and just hangs around my apartment, reminding me that I need to knit the second one. So the next thing I knit is actually what I'm wearing. So this is the Oslo sweater by Petite Knit, and this is the first sweater that I ever knit. So I love it. I was actually, like, I wear it all the time. I was already wearing it today before I even knew that I was going to film this video. I was just wearing it because it's cozy and warm, but I will stand up and show it to you. So, don't mind the bumps from being tucked in. But this was the first sweater I knit. So it is knit top down. You knit the front and the back, and then you join for the sleeves. Then it's just knit obviously around. I think there's some shaping in the body, and then some double knitting before the bind off. It does have a really nice like sewn bind off at the bottom, which I do love and am proud of for it being my first sweater. And then you knit the sleeves and cuffs. And then this is like a double layer collar, like it's front and back, whatever that's called. So it is super comfortable. It is longer than I would have liked. I think for it being my first sweater, I was just strictly following the pattern, and I wasn't focusing too much on whether that would fit my body or not. I'm fairly short. I'm like just under 5'2", so I have like a shorter torso for my height and longer legs, so I should have known to shorten the body. So it is a little bit bulky when it's tucked in, which is how I typically want to wear a sweater. But still, I love it. It's super soft for my first sweater. I think it's pretty good. There's definitely like areas on it that if I were to knit this again, I think I would look a little bit cleaner. But overall, I love it, and I knit this in Knitting for Olive. So this was a big yarn purchase for me. Knitting for Olive, it's in their merino and their soft silk mohair. I think it was worth the purchase, but I definitely had to save for it. This is the first sweater as well that I knit, and not the recommended yarn. I don't think the Knitting for Olive is a recommended yarn for this pattern. I might be wrong, but I had seen some other people on Instagram who had knit this sweater in the Knitting for Olive, so I felt comfortable doing that. And it's super soft. It holds up well. I wear it all the time, so I have washed it quite a few times and in bull wash, but still it's held up super well. And I've de-pilled it once from the mohair, but that was it. So I started this in early September, and I think I finished it in September. And I've worn it a lot since. So that was my first sweater. I love it, proud of it. And then the next one I unfortunately don't have with me because it was a gift knit. And it was I wrote the name down. It's called Karen's Ruffle Sweater. It is a baby sweater, and I knit it for one of my good friend's daughter's first birthday. So I think I'm going to insert a picture if I can find one. I don't think I took like a flat lay of it. I think I finished it like right before the birthday party. Didn't get a good picture of it, but I think I definitely have one with her daughter in it, but I'll try to find one of just the sweater and post it. And that was a bottom up sweater, and I did knit that in the recommended yarn. It is knit in, I think I have some of it, so I can at least show you the color. Sorry. Yeah, this is definitely it here. So it is San's Garn Baby Lynette. So I knitted in this color. This is all I have left of it, but it is gorgeous. It's a baby merino. So it's super soft. It is a fingering weight. I think the sweater was knit on a US 4. Yeah, so it's beautiful. It's got this gorgeous ruffle collar. And I didn't realize that knitting ruffles, what causes the ruffles is many increases. So on a baby sweater, when I cast off the collar, there was over 700 stitches on the collar. So it definitely was a lot of knitting, but it's beautiful. I think I made it in the 18-month to 2-year-old size, so that she can grow into it and have it for a while. My friend picked the pattern. If I'm knitting for people, I tend to let them do that so that I know that the knitwear that I'm making for them is going to get good use. So I had sent a bunch of options to my friend. She picked the one she liked the most, and it was the Karen's Ruffle Sweater by Petite Knit. So I will insert a picture of that one, but it was definitely a learning experience with the ruffle collar, and it was knit bottom up with raglan decreases, like bottom up ones. So that was what I knit next. And then I think for the rest of the fall, I mostly was knitting, I finished up the half and half wrap. And I knit one pair of socks for my mom for Christmas. She had been asking for socks. She just wanted like basic vanilla socks. So I knit some for her in, I know I have some of this one left as well. Yeah. So I knit them for her in this. So this is a Hypnotic Yarns yarnable colorway for a few months in 2021. I did get that subscription. I don't anymore. They're beautiful yarns. I'm just not as in love with variegated yarns anymore, and that's basically what the subscription is. But I knit some socks for my mom in this colorway, and they're gorgeous. Lots of purples, blues, navies. Yeah. So that was what I was knitting leading up to Christmas. And then afterwards, I knit, I think the next thing was this hat. So this is the Oslo hat by Petite Knit. I love a lot of her designs because they just suit like my color palette and style. I like really basic clothing that I can pair with, I like things that really can mix and match with anything. And I wanted a black beanie. I used to have one that I loved and I can't find it. So I knit this. You have to excuse the fuzz all over it. I took this on vacation out to the West Coast recently, so it's had a lot of wear fairly recently, but I knit this. It's a triple brim hat, so it's super warm. So you knit this part with 2 layers, and then when you fold it up, I'm not gonna put it on because I have like a claw clip in the back, but it's gorgeous. And it's super thick, super warm, really simple. It's just knit in the round with decreases for the crown. I think the hardest part of this pattern was understanding the understanding that there's like this bit right after the brim where there's pearl rows on the outside of the hat. So I was definitely confused about that. Like I didn't fully understand how it was going to turn into the hat. I thought I was doing it wrong when there was pearl on the outside of the hat. But it's right. I've seen other hats of it since. I just think in the English translation of the pattern, it's maybe not super clear. But that's, I don't think, the fault of the designer at all. It's just, you just kind of have to trust the process. And that's what I've learned with a lot of patterns, is that even if I can't envision how this is going to end up at the finished result, it is. I just need to follow it row by row and go from there. Yeah. So that was the Oslo hat. I wear it a lot. It was perfect for a trip I took to Vancouver a couple weeks ago, because it's a little bit warmer out there this time of year, so I didn't need like a full-on winter hat, but this was perfect. So also in January, I knit these socks. So these are Drea Renee Knits, which is Andrea Mowry. These are her everyday socks. I think that's what they're called. So they are toe up. These were also my first toe up socks. So they are toe up, knit to, purl to, ribbing all the way up the sock with, I'm blanking on the name of this heel. I can't remember the name of this heel, but they're knit toe up, and then they have, it's only this little bit of the heel that's not in that ribbing, and then the rest of it's ribbing all the way up, and then they're super stretchy around the cuff. So I made these pretty long. I wear them all the time with leggings, for just around the house, or they're really good in my blundstones. Yeah, so those were the next one I knit. These are in another yarnable colorway, if I didn't say that already. I don't know the name of the colorway, but I had this sitting around in my stash, so I knit these socks in it, and they're just nice. They're fun. I like them. They're comfortable. And then the last pair of socks that I knit over the last year are these. So this is the Glimmer socks. I'll show you the side that does not have the joins for the colors. So these are the Glimmer socks by Bloom and Create. Her name is also Emma. She's a lovely designer. I think she's based in DC or near DC. So I did test knit these. Oh, I have an end coming out. Oh no. So I did test knit these for her, and these were my first color knit socks. It's a beautiful pattern though. It was really fun, and I learned a new type of heel. I think this is a fish lips heel, or it's something similar to a fish lips heel. Yeah, sorry. But I knit those for her, and it was really, really, really fun. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, so I knit those in January, I think it was. So I knit those for the test knit, and I knit these in a mini set that I had from Sunday Fiber Co. Sorry. In a mini set that I had from Sunday Fiber Co. in her, I think it's called the My Favorites mini set. So it's a bunch of her most popular colorways all together. So these were really fun. They were challenging because they were color work, but there's no long floats or anything. I'll show you the inside of one. So they're pretty, it's all pretty small, which is perfect for learning color work. My second sock definitely had better tension than my first sock, but that is what the learning experience is all about. So they were really fun to knit, and they're also very cute and comfy. So I think the last two things, this one I finished objects. So I'm gonna go through some whips. This is gonna be a really long video. I can see that my phone already cut it off and went to a new video, which I think means 30 minutes. It cuts it off and then goes to something new. So I'm going to talk about whips, and then some of my favorite acquisitions that I haven't knit with yet, and just some of my favorite knitting tools and notions that I've purchased in my first year of knitting. So for works in progress, this is the infamous second sock that goes with that other black sock I showed earlier. This is also the first sock I've knit on a 9-inch circular, and they've been fine. I don't hate knitting magic loop. I've also tried the Addy Flexi flips, didn't love them. I do think magic loop is still my favorite way to knit socks, but this 9-inch isn't bad. Yeah. So that is one work in progress, and I think I have a second one in this bag as well. So I started a scrappy blanket. This is, I think it's called the Northeasterly blanket by Skein-Anigans. So it is a scrappy blanket. I really like the detail at the middle of this blanket. That's what drew me to it in the first place. So I've been adding scraps to this just here and there, and you just knit it for as long as you want, as big as you want. You do attach as you can kind of see here, you do attach the columns as you go, which for the first few rows is definitely a little bit finicky, but overall it's been really fun to knit. I just kind of add stuff to it here and there. I definitely do have more scraps that I should be adding in, but I have not yet. I don't think I've worked on this in a few months, which is just fine. Oh, I've got spare needles in here. Yeah, look at that. This is one of those flexi flips. They're fine. They're like flexible DPNs. I think as far as DPNs go, I don't hate regular DPNs, so I don't feel a massive need to use these. And I was finding I was getting more ladders with the flexi flips than I do with regular DPNs. So I think I've used them for one pair of socks. I don't even remember which one, but yeah, I just didn't love them, which is fine. My next work process is another 50/50 triangles wrap. So I think I'm on the second skein here. Yes, I am. So I ordered this yarn in their after Christmas Boxing Day sale sort of thing. Sorry. So I'm just gonna get it untangled here. This is how far I am right now. Sorry, it's a little wrinkled. I haven't knit on it in a few weeks. So this is how far I am right now. It is, I've recently attached the second skein, I think. Yeah, I'm just kind of working on it when I feel like it in the background. This is the color Pale Oats. This is more of the Pro Soho linen quill. So it's this is Pale Oats. It's showing up really bright on the camera, but yeah, I love it. Super simple. I'm not going to do a bright color for the second part of this wrap. I think I'm gonna do a really dark color, like maybe even a dark green, kind of like this chair. I love this chair, love the color of it. I think I'm going to do something a little bit darker than this green for the second color. But yeah, just kind of knitting on it here and there. I did knit this one on a US 4, I think. I will check. Yes, so this is a US 4 3.5 millimeter needles. The first one I did knit on US 3s, which is what the pattern calls for, but I'm a bit of a tight knitter and I did get row gauge, but I did not get stitch gauge. I was like 4 or 5 stitches off, which isn't a big deal in a wrap like that, but I thought I'd try it on a US 4, go up a needle size, and hope that I just get a little bit of a fluffier fabric. Yeah, so we'll see how long this one takes me. I don't have a second color for this picked yet. I only ordered the one color at the time because I know it takes ages to knit anyways. So I'm not worried. I'll order a second color when I get close to needing it. And one of my favorite stitch markers is on this, so I'll show it before I put this away. It is, it's this. So this is this little like honeycomb stitch marker from Boho Knits, and yeah, it's beautiful. I have a whole set of like these hexagonal markers from this maker. So I got these on Etsy. I believe she's a Canadian. Yeah, so I love this project. Love that I get to look at that stitch marker every time I'm on it because it's beautiful. Yeah, and then my last current whip is I'm most excited about. And it is on the needles, but it's kind of messy. So, okay. It is another sweater. Yeah, see, it's a little bit of a disaster. I'm on a sleeve right now, so let me just make sure I'm not going to drop any stitches here. Okay, so this is the Champagne Cardigan by Petite Knit. So far I have done the body, the button band, and like half of one sleeve. I'm hoping I can finish this really soon because I think it's gonna be perfect for like this winter to spring transition time. And I knit this in the exact colors that she knit it with in the pattern pictures because I just fell in love with it. I'm gonna get some dark buttons to go on it. There are 4 buttonholes up this side. So this sweater's been a bit of a challenge, or a bit of a learning curve, I guess. I've never knit a top-down raglan. I've never knit a cardigan. I've never knit a button band. Like, I have now because I've done those parts of the sweater, but before the sweater I had not. So yeah, it's definitely taken me longer than I expected, partially because it's knit flat, which I can't say I loved. So yeah, knitting back and forth for the body is definitely a lot more tedious, at least for me, than knitting flat in the round. When you're just knitting the entire time, when you are knitting and purling alternate rows, there's just more involved. You have to avoid rowing out, which you can see, which is like when your purl rows are looser than your knit rows, and you end up with like gaps or like really loose rows. So I think I've mostly avoided it, and I think where you can see it, it will block out, but it definitely just took a lot more focus to make sure my tension was good. And yeah, it's a lot of purling, which I didn't love, but it was worth it for this finished sweater. And then the button band is knit in double knitting, which is absolutely gorgeous. So it's like this. It's beautiful, but it took a lot longer than I expected. It took me like a week to knit that button band. I was on vacation that week, so like out of province vacation. So I was busy, but it still took a long time. But I love double knitting. It's magical. It's really cool. So double knit button band, and now I'm on the one sleeve. And the pattern does call for like loose cuffs. So the sweater is knit in a US 7, and it calls for the cuffs to be knit in a US 7. The ribbing at the bottom of the sweater was also knit in a US 7, which I did do for this part. So it's not tighter around the bottom because it's a cardigan. However, for the sleeves, I think I am going to go down at least 1 needle size, if not 2, because I hate loose sleeves. Like, not being able to roll up my sleeves, it drives me crazy. So I think just for personal preference, I am going to make the cuffs a little bit tighter, but that's the only modification I'm making. And for this one, I did try it on as I was going, and I stopped the body when it was fitting my torso and did not knit it as long as the pattern recommended. So it like hits perfectly on me. You can kind of see me standing up, for being like just below my hips, which I think is going to look really cute with jeans in the spring. So I'm really excited for that. I'm hoping I can finish it up in the next week or so. I am very busy at work, so we'll see. I'm a public accountant, so it is tax season. So we're a little bit busy, but that's okay. Oh, and I knit this in the yarn it called for. It's in Santa's Garn in their mohair and the Double Sunday, which is a petite knit yarn. I'm honestly not loving the Double Sunday. I'm not sure if it's just the batch that I have yarn from. I'll show up some full skeins. But basically the twist is very inconsistent. So I'm finding that a little bit frustrating throughout it. It's almost like it's over twisted to the point where as I'm unwinding it, and so I am knitting from the balls right now because I caked the first few and it was getting worse with caking. But it's like twisting up on itself all the time and like getting like kinks in it as I knit with it, just because the twist is so high, and it seems like some strands are twisted more than others. Yeah, but this is the colorway I'm using. I don't know if it has a name. It's colorway 2511 on the ball here. And then for the mohair, I've already caked up all the mohairs because I was going on vacation, so I caked them up ahead of time in case I needed them. But this is the colorway, I want to say 0115, if that's the colorway. It's what the pattern called for, basically. So you can find it if you look online. It's in the suggested yarns and it says what colors the sample was knit in. That's them. This mohair is soft. It's not as soft as the Knitting for Olive, but it is cheaper, which I like. I'm lucky that I have a pretty local yarn store, like it's like in the next city over, that carries almost all of the Santa's Garn line. So I love that, which is great. I think they're decently affordable yarns compared to a lot of brands that you get from Europe. Here in Canada can be a little bit more expensive, obviously. So I do like that I can get them locally and don't have to pay for shipping, and I can just go pick them up. So that is really nice. So those are all my works in process. I do want to talk about kind of what I've learned I like as far as tools and that sort of thing over the year, and then show some of my favorite skeins of yarn that I have not knit with yet. I don't have a massive stash. I've been trying to keep that small, relatively small, but I'll show some of those. So I guess to start with are the 3 project bags you've seen me pull up here. So there's one. This is my favorite one. So these are all from Songbird Handmade. She's a Canadian knitter. She is based in British Columbia, I believe. And every few months she does an Etsy shop update with all of these bags. And so I own 3 of them. I own one, and this is the first one I bought. It's in her smallest size. They're all drawstring, at least all the ones I have. And they have pockets. So this one has, you can't see, this one has 2 large pockets on the inside. And then both of these are, I believe, her medium size. I'll show this one because it's a little less full. So they're drawstring, they're canvas, and this has 1 big pocket in one side, and then in the other side, in the other side, it has another big pocket, and then it has 1, 2, 3 small pockets that you can fit like needles in. You can fit a small pair of scissors in. They are great. I have 3 of them. They've held up super well. People compliment me on these bags. Like literally I'll take them in public and people compliment me on them. So she does a great job. It's Songbird Handmade. You can follow her on Instagram and see all of them. As far as notions and needles, do needles next. Currently most of my needles are in this little case, which is actually meant for cords when you're traveling. But it's working for needles. So they're all in here. As you can see, most of the needles that I have are ChiaoGoo red lace. I do love them. I think that a year in now, I've tried enough brands. I am confident in saying that these are my favorite needles. I knit tightly, I knit continental. These are nice and pointy and really, really smooth. The join is gorgeous. And I love that the size is labeled on the actual needle. It's like engraved in the needle, so it doesn't rub off or anything, which is great. Really early on in my knitting, I thought I brought them out, but it would appear not. Early on, I did buy a knit pick set of interchangeables. You can't actually really get knit picks in Canada, but I found them on Amazon, and they're not, I just don't like the tips basically. The stainless steel needles are fine. The cords are stiffer than I would like, but the tips are just not quite sharp enough for me, but I do use them from time to time if there's a size in there that I need and I don't have, like, I'm glad I have them on hand, but I don't knit with them if I can help it. And then the other needles that I've tried a few of during the year are the Addy Turbo Rocket squares. So these are squared. It's focused. Yeah. So these are squared, which are gorgeous. They look pretty, and they are nice on your hands while you're knitting, which I think is supposed to be the main draw of them, is that they can be a little bit gentler on your hands because your grip isn't as tight because they're squared around them. I do also really like the tips on the Addies because they're very sharp, which I just love. And they do have, I believe the tips are different. Oh, maybe not. No, I don't think they are in these. But yeah, on the flexi flips they are. One tip is the rocket and one tip's regular, I think. So these are nice. I have a couple of pairs of them. These ones are a 2.5 millimeter, and then I think I have a 3.5 millimeter. So they're fine. I don't love them as much as the ChiaoGoo, but they are nice, and I'm glad I tried them. And then for DPNs, almost all my DPNs are these. There's just like a couple I pulled out of there. These Knitter's Pride DPNs. So I like that each size is a different color. Makes them super easy to see in my stash. And yeah, they're fine. They're also kind of blunt on the ends, but for like the few times I'm using DPNs, they're usually not even as a primary needle. They'll be like as a secondary needle to pick something up, something like that. So I do like them a lot. So those are my favorite needles. I am saving for a full set of ChiaoGoo interchangeables. And I think I'm going to get those at the end of March, and I'm very excited. They carry them at a local yarn store. I've looked at them in person now because I'm always like a little bit hesitant to buy stuff online if I haven't seen them, but I'm really excited. Sorry, it's gotten really windy and cloudy out, so I'm just looking outside. And then for like tape measures and stuff, I have quite a few. I have a Coco Knits one that I couldn't find for this video, but that one's really cute. For stitch markers, I have this little container of light bulb stitch markers from Coco Knit that I picked up at a local yarn store, and that I'm always opening upside down like this so that they're in the lid. And then my other favorite stitch markers are from Boho Knits, and I think they're in one of these bags. I'm not sure. I can't find them right now. But, oh, no, here they are. So you can see some of them in this little bag. Oh, it's a little reflecting. It's like these hexagonal ones that are in there. Those are my other favorite stitch markers. They're just so cute. I like how they look in my knitting. I know that shouldn't really make or break a stitch marker is how it looks in my knitting, but I do. I like how they look. So they are these. And yeah, they're just cute little hexagons, and they're lovely. So last but not least, I just wanted to show some of the yarn that I haven't knit with yet. I think just 3 of them. So I have like some random cotton in here, a bunch of leftovers and things, but these are the 3 that I'm most excited about. So this one, I'm going to start from like oldest to newest acquisitions. This is one of my most favorite skeins that I own, and I have no idea what to do with it. So I bought this at the Knitting Loft in Toronto in, I think, September. Sorry, it's like blowing out on the camera a bit. It's not this bright in real life. It's more like mustardy and like deep toned reds. But this is a spin cycle dyed in the wool. The colorway is Salty Dog, and I had never seen spin cycle in real life until this day. I was in the Knitting Loft, saw this, and I just kind of spontaneously added it to my bag at the counter. And I love it, but I bought it without thinking about what I wanted to do with it, which I typically try not to do. And so now I've been holding on to this since September, saving it for something special one day, but it's beautiful and I can't wait to knit with it. And then these two I'm very excited about. So like I mentioned earlier, I've been watching for a year Stacy of Stress Knits Yarns on YouTube, and in January she did a shop update, and I love her colors. I really like tonal colors or like semi-tonals. I would call one of these, at least the skein I got, a semi-tonal and one a full tonal. So these are, I ordered 2 skeins in her shop update in January. I think they're both going to become socks. They're just gorgeous colors. I'm just not sure what pattern yet. I'm thinking maybe something lace for one of them at least, and something nice and textured for the other one. So this is the first one I ordered from her. So these are both on her favorites base. This is the color Sunflower on her favorite base, which is an 80/20 superwash merino. It's also showing up lighter on camera than it is in real life, but it's gorgeous. It's this beautiful, beautiful, like dark gold color. As you can see, it's actually almost the same. It matches this sweater perfectly. Clearly, I have a color preference. It's just absolutely gorgeous. It's in the color Sunflower, and I can't wait to make something with it. And then the other one that I got is also on her favorite base, and it's called Palm Lines. This is the one that, at least in the version I got, I would call it almost like a semi-tonal, because there are like these darker areas of pink that show through, which I love. Like you can even see right there, there's some pink speckling, and it's gorgeous. And so it's this really, really pale pink, like almost cream. And then there are some areas that are more pink than others. So I can't wait. Yeah, actually you can see more on this end. Like there's more pinks in the middle there, and then there's more not pinks, and like more of the cream color. So these are both gorgeous. They took ages to come in thanks to postal services. I live like 3 hours from Detroit, which is where she's based, and these didn't come to me for a month because they went all over the northern US before making their way into Canada and to me. But that is no fault of her or anything. That is just how the postal services work, which is fine. I have a bunch of other like random, I think I have 2, 3, or 4 other full skeins of yarn in there, 2 that are Buttercup Cotton by Pearl Soho. Like this is one of them. I don't know what I was thinking when I ordered this blue. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. And then I have a couple more of the Yarnable colorways. So these are the 2 full Yarnables that I have. This one is a sock yarn. This one's a DK. So I guess it could be a sock yarn as well. It does have nylon in it still. I was more thinking mittens for a young cousin of mine when I ordered this, or when this one came in actually, because they're surprise colorways. Yeah, so I think that is about it. I'm sorry, this has been a little bit chaotic. My brain is very full. It is a Sunday afternoon. And I just got the motivation to do this today, and I am doing it before I talk myself out of it. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you would like to see more, or if you have any questions about me or my knitting or anything like that, you can let me know, and hopefully I will film another one in a few weeks. So thank you so much for tuning in. Bye.